Your top priority is to understand a business when you consider buying it. Otherwise, you just be shooting darts in the dark. You need to look at its metrics. They're going to give you a baseline of understanding of the problems and the opportunities that exist within that business. You want to see what revenue it's bringing in, how profitable it is, and the risk that's associated with that particular type of business. In this video, I'll go over the exact metrics you need to analyze. Let's get started. What are the key metrics you should be looking at before you buy a business? Now, the first one's going to be total revenue. The total amount of money brought into a business during a specific period of time, typically a fiscal year, is called its yearly revenue. Now, what does this give you? It provides a snapshot of the business's sales performance and its ability to generate sales or revenue. The reason why this is super important is because it indicates the business market presence and its success in attracting and retaining customers. The whole point of building a business is to generate as much revenue as possible, and from that revenue is where profits come from, once you minus the expenses. If revenue is bad and is consistently trending downward, then this is something that could be a huge red flag, and it indicates that there's underlying problems with the whole structure of that business. They're not able to bring on customers, and they're not able to market their services or products in a way that people find desirable. The next concept is SDE, or seller discretionary earnings, and EBITDA. They're a little bit different, but for this point of discussion, they're going to be considered cash flow. Now, these are very important as they are measures of a business's operational profitability. At the end of the day, a business owner wants to have a very robust SDE or EBITDA, because that means that they're making more money. Now, what insight do SDE and EBITDA give you? Well, they provide insights into the business's profitability without considering non-operational expenses and other financial factors. These are super important because this assesses the core cash flow and profitability of a business and whether or not you should even be buying it. Now, if you have a business you're looking at and the trend of that EBITDA or SDE is going this way, it is going down, then it shows you that the business is losing profitability and it is not a good fit for most business buyers out there. The next thing you're going to be looking for is the average cash flow over the last 3 years. Now, how do you find out about the average cash flow? It's going to be on the tax return as well as the P&Ls. Now, many times the P&Ls do not match the tax returns, and that's okay as long as it can be explained. But a bank that's going to finance your deal is going to look at the tax returns as to how profitable this business has gone. So if you find a business where you know it's making a lot of money, but they're showing zero profit on their tax returns, that's going to be a very hard business to get a loan on. In the reverse, if you find a business that is profitable and it shows on the tax returns almost the same exact profit that shows on the P&Ls, well, then that's going to be a much easier deal to get financed. Now, the reason why we do the average of the last 3 years is because it tells us a story. We don't just want the last year, which may have been an outlier for its profitability. We want to take the last 3 years and average them with a heavier weight on the previous year to see truly what the trend is. Is the profitability trending up? Is it staying stabilized, or is it trending down? If it's something that's trending up, then that business can ask for more money or a higher multiple when a buyer wants to go buy it because it's showing that it's consistently growing. If it's staying flat, then that multiple is going to be a little lower. And if it's declining, well, it's going to be very hard to sell that business at a good price. The reason why these are important to look at the last 3 years of cash flows and profitability is because it tells you the story and the narrative of that business. Will this business be able to handle growing once you acquire it? Or is it going to take a lot of work from you and your team to figure out what's broken and how are you going to fix it? Before we go too much further, I want to talk about what a P&L is. A P&L is a profit and loss statement. And this is a statement that a business will generate either monthly, quarterly, yearly, and it's a great way to kind of see a snapshot of what the health of that business is. So it's really important when you're buying a business to look at the P&L so you get a really good idea of where they're making their money, where they're spending their money, and what they're bringing in typically on a monthly basis. The next important thing that I'm looking for is the CAC, the CAC, or the customer acquisition cost. Now, this is the cost that's associated with the business getting a new customer on. So usually how the CAC or the CAC is calculated is for every customer that is brought into the business, how much did I have to spend to get them in? What was my marketing cost? What was my salesperson's commission that sold the product that they ended up becoming a client on? So you take all the costs that are associated with that customer coming on board, that would be your cost basis, and then you look at how much the customer is paying to join you as a new client, and you take that, you divide it over one another, and it would give you your customer acquisition cost. Obviously, the lower the cost to get a customer on, the better, and the easier to scale. The big point of having the CAC available and tracked very accurately is it's going to provide insights into the efficiency and the effectiveness of your business's marketing and your sales efforts. You're going to know when you do a certain type of ad, how much people come through that ads pipeline, and you'll know how much you spent on that ad. Therefore, you'll know for this ad, the customer acquisition cost was $100. Well, this ad over here, when we spent money on it, it was the customer acquisition acquisition cost to get one customer on was $200. So we know that the ad over here at $100 is much more cost efficient, and this is a much better way to scale because we're making much more money for each client that we take on. To put it simply, a better CAC or a lower customer acquisition cost indicates that the business can acquire customers more efficiently, which means it's also going to be more profitable. The next metric I want to talk about is revenue per employee. Now, this is the amount of revenue generated by the business divided by the number of employees. Now, why is this important? This is important because it shows you how efficient and how productive each employee is to the bottom line. A higher revenue per employee indicates a more efficient operation. And so if you have a business where it is 5 employees, but they're generating $2 million in revenue, that is much more efficient than $2 million in revenue being generated by 20 employees. Obviously, it's going to be more high profit margins for the owner, as well as the systems and operations in place are much more efficient because you're able to generate the same amount of revenue with a quarter of the workforce. Another super important metric is profit margin. For profit margins, especially when we're talking about brick and mortar service businesses, I'm looking between 15 and 35%. Now, why not below 15? Once you get below 15% profit margin, it's getting really, really tight. And if you have debt service, which most people have when they buy a business, you have a loan you took out. And if you have less than 15%, your margins are getting incredibly thin and you're getting very close to not being able to pay back your obligations. Now, why do I have a cap on the 35%? You would think that I would want it to be as profitable as possible. Well, yes, but when you're looking to buy a business, if I see a business that says it has 85% profit margins and it's a plumbing business, well, I know that it's one of two things. Either they are making it up and lying, or two, the owner does all the work. He is running around ragged. He doesn't have any help and he is doing all the work himself, which of course would mean higher profit margins because he's not hiring anybody. He's not having that additional expense of more labor costs, but he's doing all the work himself. So if the companies I'm looking for companies where the team is staying on and they are running the day-to-day, which means their profit margin is very hard to get above 35% when they have an efficient team. So I'm looking between the golden area of 15 to 35. If something's at 40 or 45 or 50, I'll take a look at it, but it has to be a good reason why it's that high. Most of the time it's because the owner is the one doing all the work, and that is a big no for me when I'm looking at acquiring a business. The next important metric is how many years the business has been operational. How long has it been around? If a business is less than 5 years, I'm really not that interested in it. And it's for two reasons. One, the business doesn't have enough of a track record for me to feel comfortable knowing how it's going to perform after I purchase it. And the second reason is when you're looking for financing to buy a business, the bank is going to want to see that same track record. And if it's less than 5 years, it's really hard to prove to the bank that this business just didn't have a couple good years. You want to have a long track record. So I'm looking at businesses that are older than 5 years and have a consistent track record showing profitability and showing revenue growth. While you shouldn't be looking at metrics exclusively when looking to acquire a business, they can offer you a baseline insight into what type of problems the business is running into and how viable that business is going to be once you acquire it. If you're a six-figure earner looking to acquire your first business with little to zero of your own money, but you have no idea where to start, I have a program where I personally walk you through the entire process step by step. We've helped over 150 people acquire their first business. And if you're interested and think this is a good fit for you, then you could be next. Now, that's going to be the first link in the description below if you want to find out more. And if you're not sure whether you should start a business or just buy one, hit the YouTube video on the screen to see my thought processes. I just posted a video going through that exact conundrum for most people. There will also be a second link down in the description to watch that video. So that is all for this video. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos on acquiring profitable businesses with little to zero down. See you guys on the next one. Talk soon.